Hi, my name is Joe, and I have Saturn in my second house, and this is my story. So, my dad, he was someone that I really look up to him because he works really hard. He's a responsible father. Most of the time, he's pretty reliable as well. There's really nothing that I would consider hard when it comes to the way that I interact with him, actually. But there's this one thing that I think was a bit of a problem in my life. I think he had some money issues, shall we say. He was the kind of person who would collect a lot of stuff, antiques and things. He would have them all around the house. And our house is if you ever come to our house, you'll see it's really full of stuff that he likes to collect and make and things like that. I did feel that I don't know, it was really strange. It was like I felt, according to what I believe in now, that he spends money on the wrong things. That's what I think. I don't know, like he would spend a lot of money buying all these antique stuff, but he would not spend it when it came to, eating out or eating good food or travels. Things with the family that I think, like traveling with the family, he would never wanted to do that because it required spending too much money. In a way, I think, when I was much younger, I wasn't really sure what was the right thing, what my values were. Yes, like I said, he was a very reliable kind of a person. He works hard, but he was also pretty stubborn as well. And when he makes up his mind about something, especially when it comes to what he's not going to spend his money on, it was just really hard for anybody to change his mind. And the thing is that, because I felt that a lot of the stuff about him, I really liked and appreciated. So I tried to work really hard in school. I was a student, back in high school I got straight A's, I tell you that. And my GPA was like 3.9. My GPA average was around 3.9. So I work hard. I'm not saying that I'm like the smartest person out there, but it's more of just that I was very disciplined in school and I worked hard. So, I felt that all of this hard work was because I wanted to make my dreams come true. I wanted to get into creative writing. I was really good at creative writing classes back in school, and I wanted to get into NYU to study writing. But this thing with the money, I told him that this is what I wanted to do with my life. But he didn't want to spend money on my education. I couldn't understand his values there and where that was coming from. I thought, isn't this what parents are supposed to do? They are supposed to support their children with their dreams, with what they wanted to do within their life. So, by the time we had this discussion and things started happening, it was too late for me to get a grant or a loan or a scholarship of any kind. So the only option left for me, the only one that he kind of supported, was for me to just go to a local college and pursue studies in business. So I was like, okay, sure, I could do that. I mean, after all, it was going to be more practical than studying creative writing. It was going to be, you know, better for my future, and it also, he didn't have to pay very much for it as well, for my tuition fees, so why not? You know, at that point, you know, I think he would tell me that, you know, it was not necessary to study creative writing and to get into that prestigious of a university, because any kind of because even if I just went to a local college, like that would be enough just to get the job that is needed and that is required to get through life. But I don't know if he's just saying that just to kind of let me get on with it, or if he really meant it, if he really valued that comment to me. I don't know. So that's what I did. I went on and I studied business at the local college. And even though I felt that it was not the right path for me, I felt that I had to still be responsible and reliable and worked really hard still to get really good grades. I don't know if I was doing it for me or for him or for someone, I don't know, but I just knew that, you know, I had to just get really good grades. And, you know, at certain times I wish that he would support me more while I was studying. I was always I couldn't really talk to him about homework and about my projects and things like that. I was just doing it on my own, and I did it really well. You know, of course I studied with friends and things like that, but my dad specifically was never the one to be involved in it. So that was okay. That was fine. I just did it, you know. So after graduating, I became a consultant, a financial consultant, and yeah, that's what I did. And then just worked every day like a normal person. At 24, I met my partner, who I was really in love with, and we got married at 26, when I was 26 years old. You know, I think it was a pretty good relationship. It was solid, it was stable, it was comfortable, you know. We had our routines, we had movie nights every Sundays, and we would visit our parents every Saturday evening, and we had a nice apartment that we lived in. I felt that at that point in my life, there was nothing else that I wanted. You know, I had everything that I ever needed. When I was around 28, while I was still working at the firm, the situation at the firm wasn't going so well, and they had to cut out some of their employees. And it came down to me, because me and a couple of other younger people, at that time I had been in the firm for 6 years. That was considered like short compared to some of the other people who had been there for over 10 years. So me and a couple of other colleagues were let go of. But that was okay, you know. I had enough money saved up, because I was pretty much into savings, so I saved up an amount of money. But also a couple of months later after that, my brother had got into a lot of debt. You know, he wasn't really, you know, around very much, but we knew that he got himself into trouble quite a lot. So he was in quite a lot of debt, and it really came to a point where if he didn't pay up his debt, there would be severe consequences. And I was really scared for him at that point in my life. So I had to help him out because, of course, my dad wouldn't help him out. So I was the one that had to help him out and cover those debts for him. Of course, at that point, it was a loan. You know, he's obviously is supposed to pay me back. But you know, there was very little savings left, and I hadn't gotten another job yet just because of this situation here. Luckily, I was still with my partner at that point. We were still together. So, you know, my partner was able to help me out with groceries and paying the rent for our apartment and things like that. So I really tried to apply for a couple of other consultancy positions within, you know, the area. But they just didn't need another consultant yet. You know, I really tried at that point. There were a lot of interviews. There were a lot of applications sent out. But it just didn't happen for me. And my partner decided that I was too much of a burden, that I wasn't getting it together, and that everything was just too dependent on him. And so I guess there were other underlying issues in the relationship as well. So that it ended, the relationship ended. Because I hadn't found an actual job for myself yet, and I had very little savings left, you know, I had to move back home at 29 years old. But, you know, by that point, when I had moved back home, to get by, I had to sell a lot of my stuff because I wasn't, you know, I was at this stage in my life where I didn't know if I still wanted to be a consultant anymore. I mean, after I kept getting rejected time and time again after applying for these jobs, you know, it didn't make me feel like I should fight for it, meaning that maybe I never wanted to do it in the first place. But then again, you know, when I had to move home, because of that, I had very little savings left, so I had to sell a lot of the stuff that I had. Things that I didn't quite need, things like decorative items and things around the house, a lot of my clothes. Basically, when I moved back home, there was just 2 luggage left of my stuff in there. It was hard. You know, for 3 months, I was a little depressed, shall we say. And I'm not proud of it, but the only way for me to really deal with all that stress was food. So I found myself binge eating a lot. I'm not proud of it saying it now, but you know, that's what happened back then. And you know, all that time that I had spent at home in my little depression for 3 months, I found that I actually had energy for one thing, and that was writing. Because I almost felt like I had this voice that I wanted to express, that I hadn't had a chance to. It's almost like I had suppressed my voice all these years with all the jobs and the responsibilities and the relationship that I was in. So I started to write, you know, whatever was on my mind at that point. So that was all I could do. And I put my stuff up there, you know, in my blog. I decided to start a blog, and that's what I was doing at that point. And you know, it was like a bit of like a miracle. This publisher contacted me and wanted to talk about if I wanted to get all of this published somehow. Of course, first I was just making money from blogging for, a year. But, after my 30th birthday, then this publisher was contacting me and stuff. And so at 31, I had my first ever, book published. And I still can't believe that happened, but it did. And I think that because that happened, I felt a little independent from my dad in a way. With everything that's happened in my life, I felt that, because when the relationship ended, it was like I was independent from my dad. I don't know if the reason why I chose that relationship was somehow because I was still in the same mindset of being with somebody who was very similar to my dad. But having this book published, having this career now as an author, I'm myself. I'm making money in my own way. Although it is not the sort of stable income that I had before, it's just a different way of making money. I'm still making the money that I needed without the suppression of my voice. I have my own apartment recently. I moved in a year ago and had my own apartment, and I've really gotten into gardening and planting, flowers and vegetables that I could grow, that I could eat daily. It's really been sort of a way for me to just get in touch with, nature. And I think all of this has really kind of just made me think a lot about whether all the things that I was holding on to were really of value to me or not. And I found that they were not. The job as the consultant, I never really valued that. All the clothes that I had, my old apartment, my old relationship, I was holding on to it, but I didn't value any of it. And what I do value now is my creative expression, the job that I have now, being able to write creatively and use my voice in that way. Planting a garden, I think, is really valuable for me because it helps me to keep me grounded. And when I had to move back home and I had to sell a lot of the things that I didn't need, I found that it was perfectly okay. I don't know why I was holding on to a bunch of clothes and some decorative items around the home that looked good, but the moment I didn't have them, I didn't feel that I was missing anything. I thought that I would feel that I was missing something, but I didn't. So now I'm 34 and I'm working on the second book that I hope is going to be published soon. I find that gardening really gets me in touch with true abundance. That abundance is all around us everywhere. It's already there. And I feel that now I know my own self-worth and what I really value about myself and about life. And that is, of course, having a voice in the world. And I really value the simple things like gardening and nature. And I love myself for what I've accomplished. Whereas before I felt I was trying so hard to get love that I just did what I unconsciously thought my dad would like. And I'm in a new relationship now, and it feels different this time. It feels different. So throughout all of this, I realized that I had finally broken through my karma. And that karma that I was kind of that pattern that I was going through for a large chunk of my life really stems from my insecurity about my self-worth. Ever since I was young, I was so confused with what I should value and how to even value myself and how to feel worthy within myself. I was associating self-worth with material things or money, because although I had a lot of it, I had things provided for me when I was younger, I also did not have a lot of it with regards to the way that my father was. So I found myself overcompensating for my sense of self-worth by working really hard and collecting a lot of money and objects around me, because that's what people in the society can accept about how I am in the world. And because I'm doing that, I always was living with this fear of loss, because if I were to lose all of those things, my job, my objects, the things that I was collecting, then I would also lose my sense of self and my self-worth, because I was associating my self-worth with all those things that could easily be taken away from me. So there was a mindset, there was a mentality that I must have more. I must always have something, must get more, I must have more, which leads to more fear of loss, which leads to actual loss. And that was my karma, to lose it all, lose my job, lose my relationship, lose my apartment, lose all the objects that I had. And then because I lost all of that, I felt even more insecure about my self-worth. And then I continued to seek for it by associating it with something, with money and material objects. So in a way, I was forced to find the self-worth from within myself. And I realized through all of this that matter, the material things outside of us, is actually an expression of our spirit. And the spirit is the mind, the body, and the emotions. And being able to value those things will result in success within the outer world. And I find that when I found what I truly valued, it is not easy to achieve real wealth. It would require persistence, because that is what I value, and I would fight for that value, and then I would receive the wealth afterwards. Whereas if I were just getting money and wealth based on things that I didn't truly value, then it's just so easy to get it, because you can get it anywhere and everywhere. But it wouldn't be what I valued. I found that what is really, truly permanent within my life are the qualities that are within myself. Nothing on the outside world is ever going to be permanent. Not my house, not my job, not my relationship. The only thing that is permanent is what I have within me. Everything else can be destroyed, because it was never really for us to own. The only thing we can own is ourselves, and we can't even really own that. Eventually we have to give ourselves away to the earth. But while we are still alive, the only thing that we can own is the qualities that we have within ourselves. So that also means that if the valuing of an object equals love, the only permanent love then can only be the love of the self. That is the only form of love that is the strongest and the longest lasting. It's the love of myself.